Okay, Troy really kicked us off there, so there's a lot that I'm thinking about, but maybe one of the important places to start, because economies might be a, kind of a complicated term. It's very big. So maybe for the high school students, do you want to, kind of define that? Maybe simplify it a little bit?
Oh, you're asking me to define that?
Yeah. Yeah.
So my aperture, my view is probably very narrow. So I think the best example I could think of is when I think of a circular economy, I think of something that we have today. Like to me, it's packaging that provides a useful life of protecting the product. It could be food, it could be your cell phone. And then it has a end of life that ultimately it has at that end of life is actually damaging to the planet. So when I think of a circular economy, I think of what are the things in our daily lives that ultimately just get down to waste, and how do we create value in that to where it comes back and then contributes back to the planet. So in the case of packaging, I believe packaging can be converted back, the right packaging can be converted back into something that stimulates plant growth. It could be soil. You could use a circular economy Starbucks is working on, kind of bring your own cup, right? So that they can sell, so then there is no waste. That's my field and my aperture is very focused on that. So, but that's how I think of a circular economy.
And so I skipped a step. One of the things that I like to do is have all of our other panelists introduce themselves and, maybe talk about your focus within, a circular economy, circularity context. Maybe I want to start with you, George.
Sure. Hi, everybody. Thanks for being here. I'm a professor here in the School of Sustainability, and I've spent about half of my career with one foot out there doing applied work with businesses and whatnot, and with one foot trying to build this field over the last couple of decades. And my focus has really been, I love hearing from Troy, right? I don't know, I was born an optimist or whatever, right? Every once in a while I get down on myself and I'll hear my own self go, grrr, cut that out. I also love the focus on the utility of application. The real world lab for sustainability is the real world. So you're both a entrepreneur and a business leader and all, but you're also a pioneer and a scientist and a researcher out there doing real world experiments. And that's a lot of what I've sort of focused on, and really transforming sustainability to being about better decisions for a thriving future. So not a problem space or a terror, a suite of horrific problems, but a suite of opportunities. And can you make better decisions now, tomorrow, on Monday morning, right? Versus, I have to fix climate change on Monday morning. And then my role here has also been to help to build educational programs, so our master's programs, our undergraduate programs, our professional lifelong learning. And then I'm also part of running a research center working with one of the big global plastics providers, Mitsubishi Chemical Group, to try and help them figure out how to become more circular and more sustainable from where they stand, right? So that's a little bit about me, and I'm really stoked to have everybody here and have a chance to talk to everyone. So this is great. Thanks.
Hi, everybody. My name is Alana Levine. I am the director for the Zero Waste program here at ASU. My responsibility really is over the circular resources goal for the organization. That means that we have to influence, if you think of ASU as an organism itself, there's a mouth end, which is our purchasing, there's everything that goes on in between, and then there's that other end of the organization, so everything has to leave out that back gate. So we're responsible for a lot of the purchasing that needs to happen at the university to make us fit along the big loop, the big circular loop, and then of course where our stuff goes downstream, and then a lot of the activity that happens inside that organism, like exchange programs, repair programs, all that kind of good stuff. So
Excellent. Hello, everyone. My name is Tyler Eglin. I'm a program manager for the Walton Sustainability Solutions Service. So similar to this Walton building, our offices are here as well. I'm a product of ASU and a producer within ASU. George, I took your class like 3 years ago, one of them. I don't know if you remember. Hi. So I now run an educational lab at the Polytechnic campus called the Circular Living Lab, where we actually take ASU plastic waste that would be going to landfill or that doesn't have a recycling solution, and we recycle it and turn it back into useful product for ASU. Our job is to actually move the needle slightly on ASU waste, but then also to research how other communities can do this as well. So we have a current partnership with Goodwill where we're starting another plastic microfactory in their facility where we can take plastics that are coming out of their stores that doesn't have a solution that might be sent to landfill, and again, turn it back into new product. So we're trying to help transition and learn how it can work at a university scale, but then also how it works in the real world, because it's not enough to just do it at the small lab scale. So we're looking into those things and trying to prove that circular economies can exist, because I think right now the term is a lot of wishful thinking. It's opportunistic thinking about recycling, right? And people think it works, but we don't have many examples, and we're trying to prove that, oh, this really does work, and you can make money from it because there's so much opportunity.
Yeah, and so we'll come back to you, Troy. Here, given your extensive experience in sustainable packaging, how do you see the role of innovation in material science kind of contributing to the development of circular economies, and what specific challenges have you faced in scaling up your innovations?
You set me up. So the material scientist, to me, is core when we think about the end of life of something. So I think one of the big gaps, and unfortunately Mitsubishi probably falls in this space, and I did polymer development at Intel. When we think about plastic, we don't really think about the end of life. We kind of passed it on, and we even used a word that is kind of, I'm passing the responsibility on to you because I'm going to say recyclable. Right? I'm not going to say it's recycled or this is what you do with it. I'm going to say it's got potential for something else. Don't know what it is, and I'm not going to tell you what it is, but here, I'm going to give it to you. And I think the material scientists today, and where my team is looking at it, is you have to design with the end in mind. Right? So what's going to happen at the end of this life? And my customer, so when we go to Starbucks, none of us walks into Starbucks and we see all this waste outside the Starbucks, and and every time they're almost always full, and we never go, that dang graphic packaging or Solo or Dart or whoever's providing that. We go, Starbucks, look at all the waste Starbucks has. So as a material scientist, you're developing it. You got to develop solutions for your customers so that they don't have to defend or they have to try to create, what am I going to do with this? Right? So the material scientist is key. You have to develop technologies that not only think about the end of life, you have to think about the entire life cycle. Where are my raw materials going to come from? Right? Is there going to be debates about that? An example of something that had good intentions, I think that's pretty detrimental to the planet is, Coca-Cola's plant bottle. Right? So Coca-Cola's plant bottle, on the surface, you're going, wow, they make part of this PET bottle that's great. It's got an end of life, it's going to be recyclable, with traditional PET, but we're going to reduce how much petroleum-based products we use. Well, we're clearing ancient rainforests in Brazil to grow sugarcane to make plastic. So again, material scientist has to think about the entire life cycle, right? Because eventually Coca-Cola had to defend, is it a good idea to clear ancient rainforests to grow plastic? Probably not, right? So we got to think of it as a material scientist, what's our entire life cycle? Is our customer going to have to defend this life cycle? Is it really good for the planet? It's got to be undebatably, this is good for the planet. And then you got to think about what happens at the end of life. And then that material scientist may or may not have to contribute into developing the technologies that give it a successful end of life. And to me, a successful end of life, goes back to the planet and contributes. Can't just go back to the planet and dig and dump strategy, right? We dig a hole and we can hide it. It's got to go back to the planet and contribute. Right?
Yeah, thank you for that. And then, George, as an academic leader in sustainability with some pretty bright students, can you discuss the key educational strategies needed to prepare the next generation of leaders for some of the challenges and opportunities in circular economies?
Yeah, sure. And I think it's interesting to actually build off what Troy just said. So if you're a classic material business and material scientist today, you're way down at the bottom of the industrial food chain. Now, historically, that's been problematic. You don't reach the customer, for example, so you don't have any connectivity there, right? You're always having to hear what's being requested and then respond and be reactive. Now, another way to say it, instead of being at the bottom, you could also see yourself as foundational, right? You're at the beginning, like everything starts with you. But you weren't trained to think that way, right? You're trained to respond and deliver. So, Troy's an exemplar up here of a sort of next generation material scientist, where you're like, well, wait a minute. I need to deliver that thing to the customer that the customer actually doesn't even know they need, maybe. And I need to be a solutions provider there. So what skill sets do you need to be a modern, right, 21st century and beyond human, right, in anything, professional, whatever. So let me pro tip, everybody. We live in a circular economy. The planet is a circular economy. We live in one. The waste problems that we have are just problems that are going to be solved by the planet somehow beyond what matters to us. Maybe the plastic will break down in 10,000 years. We'll be gone, right? So what we have right now is an economy that's out of balance with how the planet actually works, that the parts of the planet that we care about. Okay, it's always a bad idea to set yourself up against reality, right? You want to work with the big reality. So in sustainability and education, one, you guys have all opted in, and if you're younger, you have a big advantage because you haven't learned a bunch of stuff you have to unlearn, right? One, you need to have a better sense of how the planet actually works so you can understand what to align yourself with, right? Like, why do we have all these big problems due to waste, right? These are all a set of symptoms of underlying issues, one of which is the material waste issue, right? We just had a conversation on policy. Why is it so hard to get across some of these? Why is renewable energy a tough sell? The planet figured out renewable energy about 3.7 billion years ago when it figured out photosynthesis, right? It is, again, pro tip, planet runs on renewable energy. All the fossil fuel we burn, that's old photosynthesis. That's old renewable energy, right? So the sorts of things we need to help everybody is to rethink about how the planet actually works and bring that into your everyday decisions. That's a big jump. We're not used to bringing planetary thinking. When you go out to buy your burrito, you're like, dude, what do I want on my burrito? You don't think, how is my purchasing decision for this burrito going to impact agricultural systems that have an impact on planetary systems? You're not built to do that, right? You're good at getting out of the, you're good at, getting out of the rain. You're not good at understanding how your purchasing decisions impact global weather. So we need to help everybody understand how the planet works, and then we need to help understand how to transition from where we are. And I would say one of the biggest things is we need these exemplars, right? We need people who are doing it, right? So that you can see that it can be done. And I'll just finish it. Okay, that's all a grand challenge. Here's my actual experience. My actual experience is we can deliver mediocre, and okay, President Crow's watching. I'm not saying we do this, but I'm just saying you can deliver okay curricula. The talent is in the draft. You guys bring the magic sauce. You guys bring the creativity. You guys bring the persistence. You bring the curiosity. You bring the interest, right? We just heard, right? Right from the mouth of young, right? Up and coming entrepreneurs. When you take that curricula and you take the opportunity for you guys to dive into it and then you guys do the work, I have seen, as we see from the panel up here, I can give you a list. I have seen our graduates in various programs, whether they're professional graduates or undergraduates, go out and do unbelievable things. Unbelievable. You will do unbelievable things, right? So that's sort of the, and then we have all the institutional pieces here of degrees, and we have all those things here. So it takes all of that, but, super secret is you guys are the secret sauce.
Yeah, I'm really banking on one of you actually taking my place at some point, because I'm going to retire at some point, and I'm banking on you being better than me at what I'm doing right now. So, and that's what good curricula can do. Help.
Yeah, and just to echo George's point, I've said this, I gave a talk in Den Haag, Netherlands last year about energy transitions, and I said all of our energy systems are derived from the sun. You know, they're fusion derived. And so people are like, well, what about nuclear? I was like, well, we are able to achieve the less efficient version of nuclear with fission. You know, and so
and even just so you know, the old thing that you're all made out of stardust, you are actually all made out of stardust, right? Everything higher than helium is made in a nova explosion. So even all the nuclear power is remnants from solar power.
Well, and then they said geothermal. I'm like, well, it's being pulled up to the surface because of the sun's gravitational pull. And so we shut that down and blew this guy's mind who was trying to, you know, shut it down. But anyway, Alana, you know, from your perspective in, you know, environmental sciences and engineering, you know, what would you say is maybe the, you know, the most critical, maybe not most critical, but technology advancements needed to effectively transition, because you're talking about that linear, you know, purchasing into the back end, like how do we bend that a little bit and make it fully circular, you know, here in an academic setting?
In an academic setting, we really need a lot of those downstream solutions. We need the academics to contribute to the solutions that we actually need for the consumer. Troy, you're working on really fully compostable materials as packaging. We need the downstream solution for that as well, and I think you're looking to work on that. We're currently working on a couple of things where we're obviously working with Tyler, but we're also working with a group called Homer Farms, where we're sending a bunch of our food waste into food production. But we need more of that opportunity. We need it at scale as well.
Okay, yeah, I think there's obviously opportunity and optimism is, you know, kind of the theme here. And so Tyler, the guy who's working on, you know, bringing in these plastics and reusing them, you know, you want to touch a little bit about your program and your partnership with Goodwill?
Sure, absolutely. So when we started, it was in partnership with Zero Waste. And again, we wanted to just do a small microcosm because ASU, I mean, if you look at all the campuses, we're the size of a city. So we can model almost what a city can do. What's different is our control mechanisms, right? We don't have to deal with the same hoops to jump through of municipalities and outside partners. We are our own entity. So it's a great place to at least test that these processes can work, right? So at our lab, we take hard to recycle plastics, like I mentioned. One of the best plastics we use is chloroplast. If I just say that name, I'm just curious. Does anyone know what chloroplast is? Okay, so if you break down the word, Raven knows because he helps us out. It's corrugated plastic. It's a replacement for cardboard. You see it everywhere. Political signs, the little signs that you put in your front yard that are temporary, we have them all over ASU's campus. If you put those in a recycling center, they act like cardboard, like they're supposed to, but they're a contaminant, so we don't want them in the standard recycling systems. So we take all of that chloroplast that we can from ASU, and we shred it down with plastic shredders that we make in our lab, so we're using accessible technology. We're not trying to recreate systems that are multi-million-dollar systems that are inaccessible. We're trying to make it accessible for anyone to work on. So we use these plastic shredders, we break it down, we melt the plastic, we can extrude it into plastic lumber, a great use. We can make plastic sheets, we can injection mold the plastic into any product that you can dream of, basically. Almost all the small little plastic things we deal with on a day-to-day basis are all injection molded. So one of our most recent programs is actually in this Starbucks world with their reusable cups. They had a pilot program here at ASU. Maybe you've seen it. Has anyone seen the reusable cups here on campus? Okay, there we go. So we see some responses. Excellent. So instead of giving you the standard polypropylene cup, they give you a more rigid polypropylene cup that can be rinsed and used again locally. So to collect these cups, we need a return system. So our lab made a new recycling bin, a few of them, made out of ASU recycled plastics so that customers could receive the ASU cup, put it in the bin, have it rewashed, and stay in the ecosystem, again, proving a circular economy. So again, Starbucks would love to do something like that. It's hard to do it in the public where there's so many variables. So ASU allows them to have this little lab where we can test these systems. We can learn from it, we can gather data, and then we can help them push it into the real world. So that's some of the small stuff we do. But then the Goodwill partnership, Goodwill receives millions of products every year. Some of them have end markets. They have other people that want them. Plastics, no one wants to buy a half-broken container or an old toy. If it's already gone through the Goodwill system and no one has bought it, there's probably not a market for it anywhere. So they've been having to throw these plastics away. So we said, okay, you have a giant warehouse. What if we put in a recycling operation in your facility? So we're trying to vertically integrate. So in this one building, we can go from an old broken product through the recycling system and into a brand new product that is market ready in one place. We think no one has really done that before, and we think that there's a lot of value in this. And because it's at this small, medium scale, it's easy to scale horizontally at this point. You put lots of these microfactories in municipalities across the world. You can put them on islands that have their own ocean plastic problems where they can convert ocean waste into usable good. It's kind of like having a superpower for unlocking the value in plastic that no one else sees. Again, it's opportunity.
So I'm going to stick with you here for a second, Tyler. When we had talked, it's been a while now, you were saying that, you needed all the plastic you could get.
Yeah.
And so where do you need help with that? From my standpoint, it's the story selling side, is why I see the big opportunity. But if you had to, let the public know, let people know where you need help or how they can get you those plastic, what would that message be?
Yeah, so the way we've done it so far is with these strategic partnerships, with Zero Waste being a good partner, with Starbucks being a good partner. We now have special collections set up in the biodesign buildings where we get specific clean plastics. So for us to start, we need to have clean streams or high quality streams of plastics coming in. We don't have anything opened up to the public just yet. But some of my dreams would be every event that happens at ASU, every catered event, what if there was a special bin where all of the plasticware got put in, if all of the cups got restacked and they all came back to my lab? And then again, we turn those back into tabletops that we can use on campus. So having people that opt in to the collection is huge. And again, that happens with strategic partners, with people that want to go that little extra effort that find the value in it, right? Because if people don't see an added value in their behavior change, they're not going to do anything different. So we're trying to make it close enough to home that they can see, oh, this matters, I'm going to opt in and contribute.
And any panel that I have, when people start talking about dreams, I start getting really excited. So thanks for that.
Can I just pull something out of what I was hearing Tyler say, and going back to the opportunity space? So, it kind of just went by. Tyler's describing a potentially new economic model that is more local, more distributed, more adaptable, right? Delivers better service to the customer. We're all trained, right? That there's a magic box, your garbage box. You throw things away, it magically disappears. Then you have a recycling bin. That takes more work, right? Now you have to recycle, so that's harder, right? But actually, we don't think about how hard it is to do what we do. It's actually really hard to handle all the plastic waste. It's really hard to build that stuff and throw it away and remake it. It's really hard to transport it, right? So we don't realize we're doing a lot of hard work, you guys, to live kind of outside the way the planet works. You're describing a outside the box thinking, where the better box is sort of how the planet works. These things can give us higher value, right? Higher economic value, higher service. Who wants to come outside and see a bunch of garbage on the ground? We don't, right? So these are really transformative ideas. It's also what makes them challenging to do, because they really are transformative. But you also have to counterbalance them. It is not easy to drill a hole in the ground, extract out fossil carbon, transform it into polymers, transform it into fuel, ship it around the world, get it in your car, build the roads. That takes a lot of work. We are capable of unbelievable things once we redefine the problem and the opportunity statement, right? So I wanted to highlight that, because I actually think that's the attraction of sustainability. Yes, it does solve the world problems. Unbelievably, that's like a byproduct. What it actually is the coolest space to engage in science and politics and social science and innovation and entrepreneurship and manufacturing. It's literally the coolest opportunity space to engage with, right?
100%.
Yeah. I mean,
100%.
right, here's a panel all behind it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I want to give you props. I think what you're doing is awesome.
So Troy, what's it going to take for us to go from cautious optimism to actionable optimism as a community or a region?
Well, turn off your local media, or just turn off media, national media. I think it's probably a great way to help with your optimistic viewpoint. I think it's wins. It's small and progress, but you got to make progress, and there's wins, and surround yourself in a community of winners, people that are winning, that share your viewpoint. I had this discussion the other day with my CFO, and we talked about, we had a pessimist. We worked together since Intel, so we've been together 20 years, and we were talking about the pessimist in the organization, and there was always this view that it's okay. You want somebody with an alternative viewpoint. You don't want a pessimist. So, now that I'm 51 years old, I would not, if I'm interviewing, I'd get rid of the pessimist. I wouldn't hire them. And we used to think, well, it's good they have an alternative viewpoint. We want the alternative viewpoint. No, they don't have an alternative viewpoint. They have a destructive viewpoint. So if somebody's inherently a pessimist, don't surround yourself with them. If you want to be optimistic, surround yourself with people that have an unwavering belief that the future is bright and that you're going to help create it.
Yeah, it totally resonates, and sometimes that journey is hard. Yes, keeping it, and obviously you've carved it out. And I just want to share just a personal anecdote. My brother turned 17 a year and a half ago, and we went to the Footprint Center for the Suns-Bucks game. That year, and he was just so excited. He's like, who's Footprint? And this was a year and a half ago, and now we got the guy who helped rebrand the Footprint Center. So we really appreciate that. That's the optimism, coming full circle, I guess you could say.
Yeah. There's an opportunity for sure.
Yeah, there's an opportunity. And so we're working on building the Carbon Council student organization here, on campus to be the steering committee for the Carbon Summit, moving to next year. But we got a tentative green light for an Earth Day concert 2025.
Wow.
And so we're still working on venues with ASU 365, but one of our goals with the Carbon Council is to create a sustainable solutions marketplace where demand-side operators meet and are match-made with supply-side innovators. So where the Coca-Colas can say, hey, we got the 2026 goal of 100% renewable energy, plus the compound of ASU rolling out the elimination of single-use plastics. So those are two giant pain points.
Yeah.
And so where do you see, for me, it's really difficult to convince the corporates, to come support us as, students and social entrepreneurs. How do we, address those, rebuttals? Sometimes there's not really a whole lot of dialogue. They don't really give feedback, and it's, kind of radio silence, sometimes. But how do we get them into the ecosystem here?
Are you asking me that question?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think the opportunity would be, I would research or just understand what are their pain points today, what are their goals and public goals and commitments, and then tie them to ASU's unbelievably innovative, tie them to recent innovations and that are coming out of ASU, and say these are some of the things that you will connect with that may help you with this.
Yep.
But if you make it very specific, where they don't have to think about, well, how do I connect with this, and how does this work for me? If you could connect some of the dots, they'll connect the rest and go, oh yeah, well, I'm going to connect with somebody that may help me with this problem. Then I think you'll get a better response.
And to Troy's testament here, I sent him an email early, I think, was it March or April?
Early.
And I was like, hey, would you be interested in, being on the panel? I'll be on the Circular Economies panel. And I was like, oh, would you want to be the keynote? Sure. And it was just that is so rare as an event organizer. So thank you so much for that.
Jason, So one, I think you're an exemplar of the answer to your question,
Yeah.
right? So I think a few things that are complementary to this. One is invest in yourselves, right? Invest in yourselves. Empower yourself to be the action agent you want to be, right? So educate yourselves, engage, right? This is a space where collaboration and diversity, you can get older and get better in the space, gaining more experience, gaining more networks, right? So this is a place where, this is a new place to make new friends, right? You can see each other and make different relationships based on this with each other. I think in addition to listening and getting to know an organization and reaching out, like you're dating them, or you're going to hang out with them, and the first thing you don't want to do is like, oh, I'm going to transform your life. It's like, what matters to you and all. So there's all that, and I tell this to our students all the time, right? You don't have to wait. Like, you're doing this. You set up a climate summit. You reached out. Sure, a lot of it was hard, but also a lot of it was positive, right? So the other thing is, and it's a balance between having capability but I would default, entrepreneurs default to action. I would default to giving yourself permission to try. Even if you might fail, and yeah, sure, maybe you should know more, and all these sorts of things. I would say that a big one is, give yourself permission to go for it, and then don't beat yourself up too much if it's harder than you think or it doesn't work out. Like, keep progressing. I think those are other pieces to how do you get to that optimism.
Yep.
And is through some form of self-empowerment.
And I really appreciate that, George. It's while you're in it, it seems really hard, but we're at the second day here, so we're in the home stretch. And so it's like, right when this is done, I'm going to look back and be like, oh, thank goodness that I could learn and build something along the way. And yeah, it's scary. Some things didn't align as well as they could have or should have. But I have a very high standard, for how I like to see things. Because once you practice doing events and you get a little taste of making things happen, the bar gets higher. And so I really appreciate the opportunity being here at ASU. And thank you guys for all being here. And Alana, let's maybe, or Tyler, did you have?
Yeah, I was just going to chime in real quick because I was thinking back to something Troy said. One of his elements of success there is small wins, right? You have to start with small wins because it's so easy to look at these numbers that are huge, the millions and billions of all the death and bad. And so you feel like your little small efforts don't matter. But when you do a small step and someone else sees it, they get on board and you get energy and momentum, and it grows and it grows and it grows and it grows. The plastic recycling setup that we're doing at Goodwill, I built my first machine in my garage with just my hand tools, but it got me to the next step, and then it became an educational lab, and then it grew and it grew. You have to start small and have grit to push through it, but those are wins all along the way, and they get cumulative. They accumulate to something that matters and has real impact.
Tyler, you're getting ahead of me. That was one of my next questions.
I rescind that question and answer them.
Alana, so with talking about the university coming out with the new mandate or the goal for 2026, it got bumped up 4 years. Can you touch on that a little bit, and maybe touch on where you need help at? Because it seems like this is a very ambitious goal.
Yeah, you gotta kind of you want the attention of senior leadership, but it's both a curse and a blessing at the same time. So yeah, originally ASU was shooting for a 90% reduction in single-use plastics by 2030. Another one of those 2030 goals, right? Yeah.
You said 90%?
90%. 90.
No one has rates that high, right?
We are going above and beyond all of our peer institutions. But actually, we, after discussing with some senior leadership, that got shortened down to 2026. So we are fervently working on a lot of the purchasing, so that mouth end of the university, bringing in what we bring into the university eventually obviously goes out, and the health of the system in between. So we are working on, our policy is actually purchasing. We write very large contracts. We have huge dining contracts. We have huge what's called pouring rights contracts. Those are contracts that says who can pour what soda at the university. Those are pouring rights. That makes a huge difference in single-use plastics. Right now we have Coca-Cola. We're working on obviously that purchasing end of things, and we're doing life cycle assessment right now on a couple of different items to determine what is really the best. Because we also, not just to get rid of plastics, we also want to make sure we're doing best by our communities, we're doing best by by the environment. So we're actually doing life cycle assessment on virgin plastic bottles versus recycled plastic bottles versus aluminum cans versus what's called a Tetra Pak, which is kind of like a little milk carton looking thing. Coconut water comes in Tetra Paks. So we're doing life cycle assessment right now to determine what's going to really be best for the university. We've got a huge committee convened that works on all of these issues, a lot of subcommittees, and we are looking for the students actually to get behind these initiatives, because the choices that we can make giant choices on behalf of the university for purchasing, but it's really individual choices also that a lot of this comes down to. We're looking for students to also get behind this initiative.
Yeah, that's really helpful, and I think there's right now at ASU there's over 50 that has 50 student clubs that have sustainability as at least one of their core pillars, and so that's what we're trying to align and bring some leadership to say we'll get every club represented in some capacity.
Yeah, we should take this on the road. We should do a dog and pony show out to all of the student organizations. I think you just had a great idea there. We should bring this actually to all the student organizations and really get them involved in a lot of this policy making, a lot of this purchasing, a lot of the I think it's a great experience for students to get involved with it.
Yeah, we're setting up a group of officers now, and so we'll definitely we'll get them in the loop as fast as we can.
We have to be a little bit careful though, especially for the high school students in the group. I don't want you guys coming away with thinking that this is really, 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 really hard to do. You guys were born into a transition period, right? You can see the future. The systems are still in the past. And so life cycle and all these sorts of things are because we're working hard to make what we've got work for what we know it should, right? Troy's out there working to redesign some, when I get done, I get done and we're gonna have this soil that's really you want it to it'll fit in the system. So two things I think that are really important. One is, as we transition to better design that are designed for circularity, designed for sustainability, they become the go-to options, and it becomes easier all the way around, right? And the other thing is that you guys therefore shouldn't see, again, this is more like the opportunity space, even though admittedly we're in the midst of all the things you put up, right? All these things that appear to create complexity and challenges and all. I would argue that a lot of those are really sort of artifacts of where we are right now. And so when you think about your future, don't get fooled in a way that there isn't a lot of value to be created, and you guys can be those solutions providers. Absolutely. That simplify this whole process.
Absolutely. I think this is really fun stuff, you guys. In the end, it really is. I get to bring skills that I don't have my degree in engineering. I don't have my degree in anything like that, material science. I'm a business marketing major. So really, any discipline can become involved in this, and it can be really, really fun to find these solutions. And what's really exciting is being able to be at an organization where we can make these really, really ambitious goals, because we know that we have the people, we have the students, we have the academics, we have our partners, our localized partners that can actually make this happen by 2026, believe it or not.
And for the students, just to echo some of these points up here, that the little wins, the little steps forward, accomplishments create confidence. And so if you can just start putting just little things together, even skilling yourself up, that's my goal now. That's why I'm doing 2 masters, trying to bridge the gap between sustainability, innovation, and entrepreneurship. Those are my big 3. And trying to say, okay, here's where the opportunities are at, and I need to go connect with peers and professors and schools and institutions and visionaries and say, how do I be of service? How do I help with this? And so, Tyler, back to you here. Considering your background in business and sustainability, what are the most compelling incentives, or opportunities you see for businesses to adopt circular practices or bring them into your programs?
Sure. So first, it takes normally CEOs or people in the organization, maybe they're material managers or sourcing buyers, whatever it is. Someone in the institution has to have the will to play ball and to look at these solutions. One example is there's a local company that makes the pool lane dividers for Olympic swimming pools. If you've watched the Olympic swimming events, you've seen their product in the pools. So every time they go and sell one of their lane dividers to a new client, they pull out the old one, and they have no idea what to do with the old one. And so they found me just because they were looking around for someone who would take that plastic, because it's still valuable material. And so they found us and said, can you take this, right? So if there's businesses out there that, I don't know, deal with plastic, I think there's a few of them out there, you need someone on that team to say, okay, there's got to be a better way that we can do this that's maybe outside of the system that then becomes the norm because more and more people do it, right? So Starbucks did it looking with their cups. That was the pool lane, that company is called Malmstum, who does the pool lane dividers. Goodwill is looking to innovate as well. So really, it takes someone to think there has to be a better way of doing this, and then looking for solutions. And then if they find us, we can help actualize that.
Yeah, and the word interdependence really comes to mind when I'm thinking of circular economies. This is kind of an open question for the panel, and maybe we can go down unless we got to burn it. Somebody's really wanting to answer it. Considering the diverse backgrounds and expertise represented here, what do you guys feel is the most significant barrier to widespread adoption of circular economy principles, and how can these barriers collectively be addressed through partnerships with industry, academia, and potentially policymakers?
All right, I'll take a crack at it, and then Troy can, correct me. And I actually think you said quite a bit today, right, already in your talk. I personally think the biggest challenge is that the current sort of global leadership, which I don't just mean political, I just mean the current economy that we have, the industrialized economy that we have, is built on a narrative where circularity is nonsensical. It's not that it doesn't make sense. It is outside of the purview of the current economy. When you think about the problems we have, you guys, right? We have a large enough waste problem that we are changing the global atmosphere. That's a big fail. That's not a minor fail, right? We have, another landscape out in the, Pacific Ocean of, of plastic waste, say. These are big fails. And you're like, well, how can smart people make these giant fails? And I'm part of it. I live in the universe. It's not like I'm somehow not doing all the things that lead to these issues too. So our big challenge to me is that right now the current narrative and norm cannot even see circularity. And so it's going to take some pioneering. And so it's going to take you guys having permission. The cool thing is there's in everything, everybody doesn't have to understand this, right? Less than 0.5% of people, educated people on the planet, knows how this works. Understands the material science, understands the we all know how to work it. Sustainability can be like that. Circularity can be like that. Some group of us need to help pioneer this thing and make it normalize and bring the idea. And then the rest of the world will know how to work it, right? So I think that's the biggest challenge. So I actually do look towards an entrepreneurial leadership mindset and education, right? The reason I came back into this field, sort of into academia a decade ago, I thought we had enough knowledge to build curricula to empower as many people as we can reach to go out and be the solutions providers, the innovators and whatnot. And like I said, it's totally working. I wish we could do more and faster. So I think those two things, sort of this pioneering efforts, right, that pay off, and the education and knowledge so that we have more and more minds on this. And don't wait for the current folks. Go ahead and do it.
So just make sure I understand your question. You were saying what's the biggest obstacle to execution?
Adopting these principles.
I think the misinformation that the status quo puts out there creates analysis paralysis. So when you're talking about life cycle analysis, when you're probably doing a lot of these things and you're going aluminum can versus plastic, you're probably finding that aluminum can is significantly worse than a PET bottle, life cycle analysis. And then there's really no end of life for Tetra Pak, right? So, but by the way, I can help you.
Awesome.
So we've done all those. So, but what I find for my customer when I go to Nestle or Conagra and I'm talking to them, they are inundated from the status quo with misinformation. Then they don't know what's the right decision. So they're analyzing this. Well, what about this? Or what about this? And there's so much misinformation from the status quo that is trying to hold on to their slice of the pie for as long as they can is the biggest for me in what I see in this space, the biggest obstacle for change. But the fastest obstacle for change is the consumer. When you think about it, I think we can have a massive impact on this planet is just by dictating to what we buy. If we vote with our wallet, if we're in a supermarket, we see something that's in the packaging's incorrect, or we think we know it's bad, and we choose something that may be a little bit more, but it's better, and it sells. And we saw this with Conagra when they went to the plant-based bowl. They saw a huge shift in sales, especially with millennials that were voting with their wallet. And then Conagra went, "Wow, we have something here. Let's change everything we can as fast as possible." So you, the consumer, have a great opportunity to vote. And you vote with your wallet.
Yeah, that is such an important point. And even for the young people, it's like use that vote to, support and, validate the companies that are really making a difference. And so you may not think you have a lot of spending power, but, if you have a lot of students that are working together on the same thing, that voice becomes pretty loud.
Absolutely.
And so any final thoughts, on circular economies, maybe here at ASU, on what the students, need to hear about all the work you guys are doing? Because it's obviously not easy, and especially you guys got some pretty lofty goals. I mean, I should say we got some lofty goals coming up.
Yeah, so put the right thing in the right bin. To kind of second the, you vote with your dollar. We try to provide the opportunity to purchase the right thing on campus, but it really comes down to a lot of individual choice that is made out there. The choice that you make at the bin, the choice that you make when you're putting your money down for whatever you're purchasing, it's hard to think about the whole circle when you're making those purchases and when you're getting rid of something. But you are actually doing good. And every single, if all 100,000 people that at any given time we're serving at ASU is making that choice, then we have a much better place that we live in. We have much better communities. We have much better downstream opportunities. We have much better upstream opportunities. So every action really actually does count. And I get to see those numbers at the end of the year, and I'll share those numbers with everybody if you like.
No, I love that. That's great. Every action, no matter how small, I talked about it earlier. Here's a very simple thing you can do if you wanted to say, I'm ready to be more proactive. Put a sticky note on your trash can and just mark every time you take out your trash and monitor it for a month or for a year. You'll be amazed to learn how much trash you generate on your own, or it serves as a reminder for you to generate less. I did this for 2 years in a row, and I was just flabbergasted by the number, and it made personal impact, and now I never forget that. And that's so stinking easy to put a sticky note somewhere in your house, right? It starts with little itty-bitty things, but then your friends come over and they see it, and they go, what are you doing here? And it starts a conversation, and then it rolls and it rolls and it rolls. So every little action, no matter how small, the optimist in me is going to say, no matter how small, if it's in the right spirit. I'm thinking about like straws, like you throw your straw in the recycling. It's probably not going to get recycled in MRF because it's too small, but you feel like you're doing the right thing. The flip side of this is, have you heard of wish cycling? Yeah, I see a few nods. You think, I think this could be recycled. I hope it's recycled. I'm wishing, so I'm going to throw it in the recycling. The better thing to do is to educate yourself and learn what actually can be recycled and put it in the right spot, right? That takes 30 seconds on your internet search to find what can go where.
I'd add specifically for ASU students, ASU graduates, alumni, ASU want-to-be students, there are unbelievable things going on here, right? From relationships that we've generated, research centers. We have a research center on sustainable macromolecular manufacturing. We have my research center on the future of plastics and circular economy. We have education efforts. We have solution efforts. We've launched various businesses at SkySong and whatnot. There are 15,000 new graduates like every semester and whatnot. And again, amazing peer groups. So if you're either within the ASU sort of family or would like to be, I recommend that you really think of all of ASU as your asset, your resource base, right? And reach out internally, find out what's going on and take advantage of it. And then you also have to have a little bit of a thick skin when you do that. People are busy. There's lots of things going on. Don't get put off if you don't hear back or whatever, Don't create a narrative in your head that, oh, they're not, right? So combine a little bit of fearlessness and thick skin with seeing this really ridiculous, resource opportunity around here, and then use your creativity and your peer groups to engage, right? And again, we're in an example. Look at what can happen, and we've got a vision for maybe how to improve it for next year, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so with that, I like to say that we are the best technology on the planet. And so that's what we want to remind the young people is that you have everything that you need, to do the things that you want. It may take a while to figure that out. It's going to be a journey. It's going to be hard. But we're not built for easy. And so our challenges are not easy, but we can get this done. And that cautious optimism, sometimes you got to temper action with wisdom a little bit, but at the same time you got to get after it. And so any final thoughts here? Or I thank you guys so much for being up here. That was the highlight of the semester, you could say, for me. And we're in the second day of the Carbon Summit, so let's give a round of applause for our panel here. And so we're gonna take a little early break. So we got a little longer than an hour and a half. We have food outside. We got a taco bar. So feel free to hang out, mingle, and I'll be around to answer any questions.